if you understand success at anything, success is a process. Success is a lifestyle. And the sooner that you figure that out, the sooner that you'll start having success at whatever you want to have success at. It doesn't matter if you want to be, if you want to lose weight or you want to build a business or, you want to do anything at all. If you want to become whatever, you want to become a gymnast or, you're trying to become anything at all. If you want to be really, really great at that thing, if you want to have the highest levels of success, it has to become a lifestyle. And so after 6 days, nothing has become a lifestyle after 6 days. So to, be appealing to people's minds and hearts after 6 days and, to make them think that they could possibly be failing after 6 days, I think it's just bad, like inappropriate marketing, number one. And it's just silly, but unfortunately, it's probably a very successful ad because it appeals to people who want a super quick result. And what I want to talk about in this episode is creating a lifestyle of success so that you can be successful in really anything that you want to be successful in. And there are four ways really that I believe that you create a lifestyle of success. And I want to talk about those over the course of this episode here. And so the very first thing that I believe that you need to do, I learned from Tony Robbins several years ago. If you want to create a lifestyle of success where you can be successful in anything that you want to step into, the very first thing you've got to do is you've got to raise your standards. And I'll explain this how it relates to me. When I was trying to create wealth online, when I was trying to start a business, and this goes back to even before like trying to create wealth online, I knew that I didn't want to work for the next 40 to 50 years of my life and be miserable and retire broke and this story that plays out for most people who were on the path that I was on, right? Because my original path was, I went to school, I went to college, I got really good grades, I was in grad school, and the whole time I knew that I didn't really want to do that thing because I didn't want to get caught up in this life where I was spending all of my time away from the life that I really wanted to live, and at the end of the day, it wasn't really even financially sustainable, and I was going to retire, most likely retire broke, right? Because 85 to even 90% of people who are on that path end up needing government assistance or a job after retirement to even keep their heads above water. And so I knew for lots of reasons I didn't want to do that, and mainly for me, it wasn't even like that I didn't want to retire broke. It was that I wanted to actually live a life that I wanted to live. I wanted to wake up every day and do what I wanted to do and be with who I wanted to be with and all this sort of stuff. So there were lots of reasons, and I won't get into everything, on this episode, but I hadn't in the very beginning, I had this desire, right? But I hadn't raised my standards to meet the level of my desire. In the beginning, I just had the desire, so I was just looking for basically any way that I could, create wealth from home. And what I did really was I was always looking for, the fastest or the simplest way to do it because I really wanted to get to freedom as fast as possible, right? Which a lot of people do, and I understand that, right? Obviously, that's what I was doing in the beginning. But I hadn't really raised my standards to really reflect the desires that I wanted to, right? Because again, I was just doing whatever was the simplest and the easiest way. And what that eventually got me was about $50,000 in debt from trying to do all sorts of, silly stuff and never really focusing in on the real principles of, how to build a successful business. And building a successful business online or offline is the same. You've heard me talk about this a lot, and I talk about it inside of my 30-minute Workday escape plan book and basically in all of my marketing. the principles of building a successful business are the same regardless of what you're trying to build. And I hadn't raised my standards yet to really focus on doing the right things, to really focus on learning the skills to be able to build a business in the right way that would build this long-term sustainable business that would allow me to do what I wanted to do, for the rest of my life. It wasn't until I actually got let go from my job 3 weeks before Christmas. I had a little baby girl at home. She was about 9 months old at the time. My son was he was on the way. My wife was pregnant, and I got let go from my job 3 weeks before Christmas, which I thought at the time, like instantly in the moment, I'm like, I was freaked out, right? I've got, a family to support, a wife to support. We've got a new home, right? And I've got all of these things to, support and provide for. And now I don't have a job, and I was freaked out. But I had already been trying to, build a business at that time. And so I had some things, going for me. I had started the process already. I just hadn't yet raised my standards. And it wasn't until I decided that it wasn't okay to just leave my family all day long and be away at this job. If I was going to be, a good husband and a good father and really live the life that I wanted to, I had to have a different standard. So up until that point, my standard was that it was okay to have a job. It was okay to leave my family and my home and my wife all day long in order to, create income. But in that moment when I got over the fact that, I'd been fired and I was, freaking out about the, the income side of it and all that sort of stuff, when I got over that and realized that it was a huge blessing that I got let go from my job, because it made me raise my standard. It made me say, okay, I got let go from this job, but this is actually the life that I want to live. I want to raise my standard. I want to be here with my family all day long and be able to raise my family and spend time with my children and my wife and, do the things that I want to do with my life and just be there for my family, right? So I raised my standard to a different level. It was no longer in any way acceptable to be away from my family all day long. That became unacceptable. I'd raised my standard from being a person who left my family and my home and everything that I loved all day long to a person who was never going to leave them, who wanted to be with them as often as possible and just build a different kind of family, right? So I had raised my standard. So if we go back to like the weight loss example, you've got to, if you're trying to lose weight, it's not that, you can't just keep looking for the easiest way or the pill or the potion or whatever. You've got to actually first raise your standard and say, okay, it's no longer acceptable for me to be at this weight. For example, if you're trying to lose weight. I mean, some people are just trying to get healthier, right? So they change their eating habits or whatever. But to go back to the weight loss example, if you're trying to lose weight, you first have to raise your standard and say, it is no longer acceptable for me to be, 20 pounds overweight or 30 pounds overweight. I have a new standard now, right? So, for example, if you're in a room of 100 people and they're all sitting down and you ask the ones who work out 5 days a week to stand up, you can look at them and you can see that they have a different standard, right? They don't do the same things that other people do. They have a different standard. They wake up and they go out for a run, or they wake up and they work out, or they eat different, right? They've got a standard that every single day they do different things because they raise the standard of their health, right? And so, for example, if you want to lose weight, you've got to say it's no longer acceptable for me to be this weight. And then so for me, it was no longer acceptable to leave my home and my wife and my children every single day in order to create income. I was going to create it from home so I could actually be the husband and the father and the person, that I wanted to be. So number one, I raised my standard. That's the first thing you got to do, is raise your standard. The second